Hello Idle Hero fans, thanks for tuning in today as I'm going to be doing a quick video talking about what has happened to assassins in the current meta. Now, if anyone has been playing since the beginning of the game essentially, they'll remember when heroes like Faceless were actually quite strong, as well as heroes like Walter. When Walter first came out, he pretty much broke the game, very similar to a few heroes that came out shortly after him, such as Dentalion. But my point being that there was a time when assassins were extremely powerful in the meta, and nowadays you really don't see them, with the exception of Faithblade, which we will get into a little bit later. And the reason why I wanted to bring this up is because it kind of shows how a shift in the mentality of the game can really impact the way a type of character or a type of, like a unit, an archetype, kind of can root you into a problematic system. And what I mean by that is, when you think of an assassin, and when you're trying to design a good assassin, what you're looking to do is you want a character that can kill a unit and kill them quickly, but also is very weak themselves to being killed. So the way that works in traditional RPGs or most other games where assassins are a big part of the meta or a big part of the lore or something of that nature is that they're very usually mechanically difficult to play, and they can be, if they are caught out when they're trying to assassinate someone, such as in like League of Legends for example, they are very easy to assassinate themselves because they have no defensive options. They usually have mobility and damage, and that's basically it. But in a game like Idle Heroes, this is very hard to actually translate to the game because we're looking at a game where there are no mechanics. So you can't make a hero like Walter mechanically difficult. All you can do is try and manipulate the stats so that they reflect a balanced hero. And that's where the problem comes in, because what can you actually do to make an assassin effective in its traditional sense while still not being absolutely ridiculous like Faithblade is? And that's where the problem is, where you look at something like Walter, where his speed is okay. 1169 is not terrible, but it's not amazing. We can go to Bloodblade, which has a little bit better speed. His speed is actually up there with Demon Hunter, which is something that most people probably don't know. So considering how fast Demon Hunter is, Bloodblade is actually faster than her. But the problem is that with him, he just doesn't have the burst damage that would be required to actually make that like assassin role feel traditional. He has been relegated since to a more PvE style because of his damage over time. He has he hits 3 units, he bleeds them out, and then while they're bleeding, if he hits them again, he does more damage, which means over time, his damage is tremendous, but in the course of a 4 or 5 round fight, that's just not going to do enough of what you need it to, especially if you look at what the kind of other characters that can do similar things are going to do your job better. So how many assassins in this game are actually capable of one-shotting people? And that's kind of what you would want them to do. And that pretty much just comes down to Faithblade. Now, normally that would still be hard to justify, because if they weren't fast enough, even if they one-shot people, if they end up getting killed before they can activate their abilities or something like that, then they're not going to be useful. And that's where you see the culmination of everything that's too good being put onto Faithblade. Faithblade has too much damage. His damage is high enough so that he one-shots people, and that by itself could be acceptable. But then you look at something like the fact that he has 1232 speed, which is astronomically high. It's the best in the game. You're not going to find heroes that are generally faster than that. If there are, I think Mim might be close. He might be the only one. Now, even he's slower. So, basically, we have Faithblade and Armavor at 1232, and those are the only heroes in the game that have that kind of speed. So what we're looking at here is, not only does he have a tremendous amount of power, so he can kill a unit in one hit, he can kill 2 units in one ability, he's the fastest unit in the game, and even then you could still potentially find some way to play around him, but he also has stun immunity. And this is where you kind of see, this is what it takes to put a assassin on the board when it comes to viability. You really need to give them everything. And you can kind of compare that to Armavor, who is very fast as well. He's got good HP, so he's harder to kill and his damage is actually very high, but it's not generally high enough to one-shot people like Faithblade, and he doesn't have that crowd control immune, at least for, like, he doesn't have a hard crowd control immune. He's only immune to silences, which is much less prevalent now than it used to be, and even then he can still attack, so he's going to be building up energy for his next ability, which will allow him to do even more damage. But even with that all being said, that's still not quite enough. You need to have literally all three of those things. You need the ability to one-shot with Reckless Abandon, which he does not have. You need the ability to go faster than everybody, which he does have. That is one part of the thing that he does have. And you also need the ability to not be stopped while you're trying to do that. So something like a Cruise right now puts a damper on Armivore, while it does not on Faithblade. And that's why you see, if you try to compare them to other more traditional assassins, if you look at something like Faceless, Faceless has none of those qualities. She's not fast, she's not tanky, she does not immune to stuns, and she will not one-shot. When you have a comparison like that, there's no way you could justify using Faceless in any regard. And now, I know that's a bit ridiculous to compare because Faceless hasn't really been meta for a long time, but even if you compare other strong assassins like Bloodblade, like Walter, these guys are also missing those key components, and because of that, they're just not relevant whatsoever. And of course, same thing with Mirage. Again, he fits more under the same boat that that Faceless does, where they just never were particularly useful. Now, there can be some exceptions, but these are going to be niche. Like Kareem, for example, can sometimes have good fights because he does have the potential to hit that attack damage where he can one-shot people, but unfortunately, it's conditional, and if he gets crowd controlled, he's pretty easy to kill, so he's not going to be surviving, and he's going to get obliterated before he can take advantage of that damage. I actually feel like Kareem is one of the best balanced assassins in this game, where he can eventually destroy your whole enemy team. He can assassinate very effectively, but he has his drawbacks. He can be reeled in. And I think this is what they need to look for when they're making assassins in the future, but not only just because of his ability to be, like, have one-shot potential, but also be one-shot. I think they need to find some more unique ways to try and balance these heroes. Because right now, the dichotomy of just either having Assassin do everything or do nothing is too polarizing. There should be more of a middle ground, and the way you would normally do that, if you don't just want clones of characters like Kareem, is that you would have to add more unique abilities. Something that would allow Assassin to either get stronger quickly if certain conditions are met. For example, if they are hit with crowd control, instead of being crowd controlled, they actually gain attack. And you can see some examples of this with Valkyrie's recent ability here. Whenever she's affected by crowd control, she heals and the enemy takes damage. If you give something like this to an assassin, where if they get hit with crowd control, they get stronger, but at the same time, if they just get hit with damage, they just die, that creates a new type of balance where crowd control teams are going to do very poorly against assassins, but just other teams that have like warriors that can do decent damage, like Azmodal or King Barton, are going to shut down assassins, which makes perfect sense. It's very hard to assassinate tanky characters, whereas if you're playing against squishy CC characters, you should be able to beat them. And that's where you kind of can not only make a different case for assassins in the meta, but it also still kind of sticks to their archetype. You're not going to really throw out the kind of perceived abilities that an assassin would have. So I don't know what you guys think. That's just kind of my opinion on it. I wanted to share that because I felt like Assassins have been in a really weird place for the past little while. So let me know what you guys think. How do you guys feel about Assassins currently? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think that maybe there are more Assassins in the meta and just that because of things like the private server emphasizing just literally the best, that it just doesn't happen to surface here? Or do you think that I am right and that we should see some more diversity in the way that Assassins are made in the future? Either way, guys, thanks you for watching as always, and let me know what you guys think, and have a nice day.